Welcome to today's episode of The Growth Zone. I am Christian Bartsch. What is the core benefit of listening to this show? Business leaders in corporate and privately held companies gain insights into trends and strategies that provide them with a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Each episode focuses on an area such as marketing, sales, innovation, or funding that is absolutely critical to the growth of companies, whether they are startups or corporate global players, where management needs to juggle the challenges of market entry or knowing how to navigate the uncertainties of disruptive developments. Mind feeding is where clarity evolves and helps solving organizational challenges. For those who listen to the entire episode, I have a special surprise gift. I am working on some great guests that are industry leaders in management, innovation, and marketing. Let's get started on today's episode. Today I am with Darius Tan, who is an entrepreneur and a marketing coach, social media, organic marketing, Instagram market leader. So today's topic is how to grow a brand and convert following on Instagram or Twitter of up to 250,000 on both platforms. So who is he? Who's my guest? So Darius was just another lost and confused entrepreneur who wanted to help people but didn't know how to get what he wanted to get out of the market. He realized that in this modern day you need a clear message to stand out and a way to amplify it. In over 2 years, he invested over 5 figures just to uncover his hidden message and spread it, growing a following of over 250,000 people along the way. Hence, it's now his mission to help people uncover their message and spread it to the world through his podcast, Live Your Legacy. Along with the podcast, he and his team conduct the Brand Changer Masterclass, which teaches entrepreneurs to stand out as the new market leaders in a flooding Instagram market. So let's go and listen into our conversation. So I'm today with Darius from Singapore, and our topic today is going to be on how to grow a brand and convert following on Instagram or Twitter of over 250,000 on both platforms. Darius, can you please tell me more about yourself?
Great. Basically, I'm exactly what probably the bio is said. Basically, what we do is we help our clients as personal brands stand out as new leaders in a very noisy and saturated Instagram market. And basically, what we teach them is to grow a profitable following that can scale their impact, sales, and leads.
Oh, cool. So, speaking of that, leads and all these things. So, your focus, is it more on a B2B environment or B2C?
It's,
When you
it's very heavily focused on B2C.
Oh yeah, cool. So for anyone who's looking towards to get more consumers and so on as customers for their business, then they have to focus on Instagram. And what would it be? Let's say if they'd be wanting to say, well, I want to do it on Twitter. Who would they typically be targeting then in that case? As well, B2C or B2B or both?
You're specifically talking about social media as a very broad term, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when it comes to social media, I think the first thing that I always walk through people is identifying what platform they want to be on. And identifying what platform you want to be on is not due to B2B or B2C. It always answers one simple question for those people who are listening right now, is answering where are your clients hanging out at? right? So where are your clients hanging out at? So maybe if B2B, that doesn't mean that if you're B2B means you gotta be on LinkedIn, right? That doesn't mean if you're B2C, you gotta be on Instagram or Twitter. No, it doesn't really work out that way. It works out on the fact that where are your current clients hanging out on? There can be maybe some corporate high level corporate C level executives that maybe hang out on Facebook, right? And that's where you can find them at. So when it comes to knowing which platform to be on, it's always answering the first question, which is where are my current clients hanging out on? Okay, and second thing is always looking at when you're going into the platform, understand that you're going in for a really, really long term, right? You can't go in and just say, okay, I want to do B2B, I want to do B2C. You got to understand that whatever platform that you're going onto, you're building a brand. So that's the second thing you got to consider on. Like when you go on the platform, it's not just, okay, I'm going to get leads and here like that. How you going to get leads, how you going to attract leads and sales is through building your personal brand. So let's say for some people, let's say if they're targeting some B2C and then they realize like, hey, my clients are hanging out on Twitter, maybe they're also hanging out on Instagram and maybe they're hanging out on Facebook as well, but most of it maybe Twitter. And then maybe you realize that, hey, Twitter isn't something that is very natural to me. Then why not go with the second highest one? Unless maybe the second highest one is like maybe 80% of your clients on Twitter and only 10% is on Instagram. Then what you should be doing is push yourself out of the comfort zone and go onto Instagram and show and experiment more on their platform, right? But if let's say like 40% comes from Instagram, 40% comes from Twitter, and you're not very confident with Twitter first, start out with something that you're more used to. Because I think some people are still right now entering the social media game, right? The thing is, people always say that, oh, it's too late, right? It's too late to enter social media game. Now, it's never too late unless you never do it, right? So start today and then make small steps forward. So let's say if it's on Instagram and you don't really like Twitter, okay, then you go on to Instagram and then you start going and building your brand through Instagram. So first thing, always ask yourself, where are your clients hanging out at? And when I say where are clients hanging out at, don't imagine your clients. Okay, I think one of the biggest problems that usually business owners have is they start thinking like, oh, where do my clients hang out at? Right? No, don't imagine it. Sometimes people imagine too much, and then the client that they imagine isn't like a real life client, right? So always go and be on the ground. Go and look at where your clients actually hang out at. Go and ask them specifically. Like for me, I constantly ask my audience a lot of market research questions. Like, oh, what do you guys like? Do you guys prefer this kind of content? Do you prefer this kind of content? And what do you actually like? Right. So going by that two questions, first, when you want to identify a platform, always ask yourself where's your clients at? And second, understand that you're in for a long-term game of building your personal brand.
Absolutely, and as you say, it's goes down to really asking the questions and not just saying, "Yeah, I asked the questions to myself. I didn't ask them to my real clients who exist or those who usually are buying from competition. So at least I know, okay, where are they, and I have to be there in a way that they actually decide to be with me instead of somewhere else or nowhere." And talking of that, as you say, building a brand and that, why is it so important for them to build a brand on social media, from your opinion?
Okay, my opinion, the reason why is actually very similar to what Gary Vee once said. I think it's very powerful. I don't even intend to rephrase it. He understands the importance of social media that previously where were all the attention on, right? Usually people will watch TVs, television shows, movies, and basically all the traditional media, things like radio as well, right? But you realize that there is this huge transition in the millennial generation and the future generation that's moving over to what, right? Like if you look at television, nobody's on television nowadays. People are going on to YouTube, right? And nobody's hearing much of radios unless you're in the car, right? Most of the time you'll be listening to podcasts, right? Like whoever that's listening to your podcast right now as well. So the whole important aspect of social media is you're currently focusing on where the attention is at. And where the attention is where you will garner all your fans, your traffics, your leads at. Right? If you're focusing on traditional media, still going on to magazines, still going on to newspapers, yeah, I mean they're great credibility factors. But the thing is, if let's say people want to know more about you, they only got a website. And let's be honest, who will really follow a website every day? Do we check our website every single day? We don't, right? So what we always follow is we follow social media personalities. If you guys who are listening right now use Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, either one of it, right? If you realize the people that you're following, they're not usually brands. Yeah, maybe you have some shopping brands or some things like that, but most of the people you follow are personalities, right? Whether is it you follow Tony Robbins, Jay Shetty, you follow Lewis House, Tom Bilyeu, or anyone else, right? You realize you're following personalities, and that's how important branding really is. If you really look back at the previous thought leaders, because I'm super passionate about thought leadership, if you look at the previous thought leaders, not previous, current thought leaders as well, but just that their generation is phasing out, right? People like Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins, right? All these people are pretty old already by now, but they took decades in order to build that brand which they are when everyone knows them, right? But if you look at people like Nas Daily, if you know who that is, Jay Shetty, Prince EA, right? These people build their brands so freaking fast. Like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, they're freaking great at what they do. But it took them decades to build that reputation and get that kind of following and fans around them. But if you look at people like Jay Shetty, Prince EA, and Russell Brunson as well, right? They took a few years, in fact, 2, 3, 4 years, in order to gain that amount of popularity and get a crap ton of fans buying from them. So that's the whole importance of social media. I think people who I don't usually like to convince people on like, oh, this is why social media is important. No, I think if you really go and look at the case studies, right? I'm always looking at results. I don't really like to hear people talk, right? I want to see it being done. Just compare past thought leaders and the current thought leaders right now. It's so freaking fast for one to become a thought leader, right? There are people like Nas Daily started 1 minute vlogs, and in about 2 years or 3 years, can't remember, he became one of the most viral sensations on Facebook, right? So social media is literally where all the attention is at, and it's where you can scale to a very global brand in the shortest period of time. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, definitely, because when you look at it, as well as you mentioned, Gary Vee, for instance, he's been as well in the last few years always promoting that people should do more advertising, should do more, going to more into social media, and even as well TikTok. And we see what's happening with that platform now. Many new other platforms are coming, and some people are maybe even considering as well not even to be online on the, let's say, now old-fashioned platforms like Facebook, where they say it's not so great, your organic reach isn't really there anymore, really that much, and so they go somewhere else, whether, for instance, like Twitter or TikTok or other places. And just recently I installed a new app on my iPhone and tested it out and thought, okay, looks a bit like TikTok, it's just different, but it's obviously more music and as well totally different, because for instance on TikTok you see a lot of not only the ladies dancing around, but you see as well pilots and stewardesses and so on showing snippets of their life, of flying, landing, and so on. That's something it's more my thing. Like yesterday I was flying as well across with a motor glider around the mountains, and that's a great fun. And I've got a snippet on my Instagram online as well from yesterday, just a few seconds before we went to taxi to the airport. But that's something that you can give us an impression just to people as well who maybe are interested in all these things. And as you say, thought leaders is built by what you see regularly, and it means as well that you have to be all the time there. It's like with this podcast as well. It's regularly shown. And I just had a little break just in summer, just a short break. And that was it for new ideas to deliver content. And it's for you as well, I think, as well, that you have to see as well, how can I really build and convert the following? And as you say, you've got two big followers, groups of followers on Instagram and Twitter, which is two very different audience sections, let's say, because they have different kind of interests and ways of interacting. How do you manage these two very diverse platforms in your
Okay, so
branding?
this is actually very interesting. Usually people ask me and they go like, "Wow." So what happened was, I jumped onto Twitter because not for some grand reason of like, oh, I wanna impact the world. And yes, I mean, I wanted to help people out. Yes, that was the purpose I came in, but there wasn't a vision like I want to hit like 1 million followers and to basically become a thought leader. The whole idea of why I even jumped onto Twitter was because I was bored. It was really simple. I was bored. I knew I wanted to help people, but back then, basically in Singapore we have like compulsory national service where basically all the guys have to serve the army, right, in order to protect our nation. So I was in the army, and now, like, after hours, basically 6 a.m. we wake up, 6 p.m. we're done with the training, right? 12 hours or more than that usually. And then I realized, like, there are those few hours, and I thought, why not just waste it? Why not waste it? Sorry. And I thought, why not just go onto Twitter and help someone out, right? Really just help someone out, because I'm very into personal development as well. And I thought, maybe some people need words of encouragement and things like that. So I went onto Twitter, and then that was how my whole journey on Twitter started. And then I was doing pretty well on Twitter as well. Basically, what I did on Twitter was literally like what Gary Vee did, right? Gary Vee had a very hardcore way of going onto Twitter, and I think that strategy is probably 1 decade ago already. He said that, I can remember, he said from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., he will search on the Explore on Twitter and find all the topics that he's into, and to leave his thought or his opinion on someone's tweet, right? And he did that for 5 hours. I was thinking, this guy's mad, right? So instead of doing that 5 hours, I thought, you know what, 3 hours, 2 hours every day is also a good step for me. So I just started doing that, and then I realized, like, wow, I'm gaining organic followers. And then I started tweeting. I tweet like about 6 or 7 or 8 times or so a day through my Twitter account, and that was when I started getting um, organic followers. We're getting about 3, 4K, 5K followers a month organically. And then that's when I realized, like, you know what, since I've pretty much settled on Twitter, I thought, why not go on to Instagram as well? It'll probably be something similar to Twitter, but I was dead wrong. I was dead wrong. It was freaking terrible. I went on to Instagram, and it's not like Twitter. Like, it's really not like Twitter. So I thought that I would get the same results as Twitter, because the first few months on Twitter I was really doing quite well. But on Instagram, I spent 3 to 6 months growing only 500 followers, and I was posting. Let me calculate this. Okay, I was posting 3 pieces of content every day, right? So if I were to calculate 3 times 30, that's about 90 times 6, right? I was producing 540 content, and I have 500 followers. My number of followers were less than my content that I've listed out, right? Which is very ironic. So the problem was that is because I did not understand the context. So for those people who are watching this, right, understand that managing two is not easy, right? Because your question is in terms of managing both of them. Managing two is not easy at all, because you have to understand the context behind each of the platform. What I did was I went onto Twitter. Tweets usually have like quotes and basically sayings and opinions, so it's a lot easier, right? It's just one sentence, one sentence, one sentence. Twitter doesn't allow you to use so many sentences, and I tried to do the exact same thing on Instagram, where I post quotes, a few thoughts and opinions, and it did really, really badly, because what I did was I took it out of the context of Twitter and try to put it on Instagram, which is not how any social media platform works. If someone comes and tell you that, hey, you know what, you can put whatever on TikTok onto Instagram. Yeah, sure, maybe because of Instagram Reels right now you can do that, but that doesn't mean you'll see the same results that you see on TikTok, right? So if you really want to get the best out of each platform, you need to understand the context behind each. So Twitter is a lot more short form content, a lot more of, and even memes, right? People are talking about memes nowadays, and basically funny gifs and things like that. A lot of it actually comes from Twitter. Right? Most people think that, oh, it's from Instagram, or oh, it's from Facebook. Facebook is the last stage, really. Facebook is the last stage. It usually comes from Instagram, then Facebook. But actually the first stage is actually from Twitter. I realized Twitter, for all those people who are interested in like thinking of whether going to Twitter, Twitter is very good when it comes to user interaction. So it's very good for market research. And there's two more things that I'm very surprised with Twitter. Um, Most of my podcast viewers came from Twitter alone. Even though my Instagram has a bigger following, most of my viewers, and I'm saying like 80%, I'm not even saying like 50 or 60, I'm saying 80% comes from Twitter. And people who read my articles as well, so for those who are into SEO, right, and they are looking to grow their website, most of my article viewers also come from Twitter. So I realized podcasts and articles, right, do extremely well on Twitter. Now you might be thinking, okay, then what is Instagram good for? Now I realized that Instagram is a lot better in converting leads actually. If you're really looking at converting leads, Instagram is as good as Twitter, or maybe even better than Twitter. And second thing is, when it comes to organic reach of Instagram, it's actually better than Twitter. Now the problem with Twitter, right, because you talk about managing, right, is that in order to stand out in the market, you need to have very, very well-tuned thoughts to what the market is. Now, people might be thinking, what in the world is well-tuned thoughts? And that's something that's the reason why I don't really teach people Twitter. Like, I am pretty good at Twitter, but I find it difficult to really, if I really want to teach Twitter, I have to go and, I'm not going to be teaching about Twitter. I'm going to be teaching about personality and how you're going to show your message to the world. Because on Twitter, it's a lot about your own thoughts and opinions, your commentation, your discussion of a current topic. And Twitter requires you to stay on the trend continuously, right? It's not like people will come onto my account and probably see like, wow, he's just posting like quotes and asking a few questions and he can gain like a few tens of thousands of followers, and people is like, wow, I can do it too as well. But no, if you actually scroll back a lot to my previous tweets, I was interacting with a crap ton of people. Like, the only reason why I got here today is because of the foundation I built. So usually when people try to model, right, in NLP, they always say, oh, model after what's very proven. They see what's on the surface level, but they don't see what's the exact foundation built. So on Twitter, it was a lot of interacting with a lot of people, and there's a lot of messaging, a lot of collaboration. So there's a lot of hard work that goes behind Twitter, which I don't really like. If let's say someone was starting out, I think it would tire someone out when it comes to Twitter. Right. On the other hand, Instagram, right, its organic reach is not exactly decreasing as what people proclaim, and organic reach is still pretty well. If let's say even if you're noob, yeah, even if you're noob at like design, or if you're noob in tech, which I'm both noob in, right, I'm still able to grow a following of 100, and I think now it's about 170, 180K on Instagram alone, right? So on handling Twitter, basically that's one section, which is really about a lot of quotes, a lot of opinions, a lot of discussions, right? A lot of questions as well. On Instagram itself, is a lot more about putting out content that your audience really likes, right? So when it comes to Instagram, I can probably talk really long about the kind of content, but when it comes to managing on Instagram, it's really understanding what your audience likes and really giving it to them. I think a lot of people tend to talk about very high level stuff on Instagram. I think that's one of the most rookie mistakes. Like, people will be thinking, wait, isn't it a good thing that I talk about high level strategy? Then my audience will be thankful because they'll be like, wow, this guy is going through like such valuable gems. Now here's the problem, right? Most of our audience, let's say if I'm teaching my audience Instagram growth and Instagram branding and Instagram marketing, and I'm teaching them like, oh, how to set up a tripwire funnel in order for your Instagram brand, right? For example, right, just saying an example, right? Most people will go like, okay, what in the world is a tripwire funnel, right? Maybe some people know, some people don't know, right? And then usually when you go through more high level strategy, people will start to get lost with whatever you're saying, right? And people won't be that interested in what you're saying. Why? And I realized this one thing is because you are not answering the first question that they have in their mind, right? Most people first question is probably, how do I grow my Instagram, right? But you start to dive into too high level strategy stuff, like you think like, wow, this is like the most valuable of everything I can probably teach. But the problem is, to your audience, it is not valuable because it is not the first question that comes in your mind. Maybe you have to answer like 50 questions before you get over to, okay, so what kind of funnel do I build in order to get more leads? Is there a quiz funnel? You can do a quiz funnel as well, another high converting one, right? But the very reason why, if you go onto my Instagram page, I don't really talk about lead magnets, funnels, and more in-depth things, is because people want their first question being answered, which is, how do I grow an Instagram brand, right? How do I build my personal brand? Like, questions that people would be asking in their mind right now when they're hearing to this podcast. These are the same questions that I'll answer. And if you want to know how do I get all these questions, you can scroll through YouTube. If you actually go onto YouTube and type in whatever topic they're in, you go in and you go into a video and you see the comments and the comments, right? You usually see all the questions that people have below. They'll be like, oh, how do I, what are the steps in order to start building your Instagram profile, right? And then what are the steps to building your content, right? Answer the Public is also another good platform, right? Quora is also another brilliant platform. Reddit, not so much, because Reddit nowadays is filled with a lot of memes and things like that, and not very focused on business centrics. So that is really how I manage this too. And obviously, I have apps and schedulers on scheduling the content and things like that. But I think that's a bit too advanced. So just understand when it comes to managing, always understand this, because I know that Gary Vee is a huge fan of telling you guys that, hey, you know what, you should go on every single platform. Now the thing is, it's not exactly very wise to go on every single platform when you do not have time or resource. Always look at whether you have time or resource. Right? The reason why I got into Twitter in the first place, why I had time. So I decided, you know what, every day I'm just gonna put into it. Right? I didn't have a business back then. Back then, I think it's about 2-3 years ago. Right? And then second thing is resource, right? The only reason why I can be managing multiple accounts, right? If you have seen my links, right, Christian, is because my team is actually doing that for me, right? If I did not have someone or people helping me out, I probably wouldn't be able to manage all those accounts. It'll probably take my whole day of managing those accounts. Then I wouldn't be working on my business. So always understand strategically what is the first platform you're going to focus on. Let's say, like just now I already told you about identifying that platform. Let's say if currently right now is Instagram, go on to Instagram first. And maybe after you got some stabilization on Instagram, you know what kind of content you're gonna post, you know what stories, you know what highlights, you know, you're gonna go on IG Live, IGTV, and you kind of got the rhythm of like posting it every single day. Right. And I'm not kidding. I say posting every day, or maybe at least 3 times a week. Right. And you have that rhythm of regularly posting, then hop onto a different platform. I think people stretch themselves too thin, first thing. Most people stretch themselves too thin by going onto every platform, and then they realize that, wow, this is very tiring, and then they don't get the result. And why don't they get the result? It's because they're trying to divert their energy to so many places. And where focus goes, energy flows, right? That's what Tony Robbins always say. And if your focus and energy is diverted, then your results will also be diverted. Instead of maybe having 5K followers on Instagram, which you can monetize easily, you will only maybe have 100 followers on Snapchat, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on TikTok, right? And it's very diverse. It's there's not much fans who will know you exactly. So always understand that do not fall into the misconception of diverting out everything at one go. Always start with one and then slowly start to diversify based on whether you have one time or second is resource. Now the second thing I want to say about this is when it comes to misconception, always understand where in the world is the best place for you to reap the ROI. Right? Some people are going onto TikTok and then expecting themselves to gain like business clients, right? Because they will say diversify, right? And they're like, oh, I want to get corporate clients, but are corporate clients hanging out on TikTok? No, they aren't, right? So you gotta strategically place yourself into positions and platforms where your clients are actually at, which goes back to identifying your platform. So even when you're diversifying, you want to ask yourself the same questions. If not, you'll be wasting your time on this on different platforms. So that's pretty much how I manage these two accounts. It's also mainly because there are people behind me. So always understand the questions that I've already posed for you guys. And when you ask yourself these questions, then you move forward to understanding which platform is for you and how you're going to diversify it.
That's definitely true what you're saying, and that brings me to the topic as well, or the thought that too many people are usually struggling to do too many things at the same time, and eventually don't do it properly, and they just leave half of the job done and then complain that it doesn't work. That's, of course, stretching themselves too far, and then of course then having no real true strategy because they haven't sit down before and thought first, okay, what do I really want to achieve, and where do I realistically can achieve what I'm intending to do. Yeah. It was great having you here on the show. And how can they get in contact with you, Deiris?
Okay, great. So you can actually find me on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I'm banned on Facebook due to too much growth hacking. So um, yes, I pretty much have like I think 9 or 10 accounts banned on on Facebook. So Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, you can find me at Darius THW. That's DARIUS THW. So it's pretty much the same handle for all this. And if you want to know more and actually want to get a personalized assessment on what you can do better on Instagram, you can actually head over to my Instagram profile. There's a link in my bio, or you can go to www.thedariusstan.com. That's the is DHTHE, right? So thedariusstan.com, and you'll be able to find the personalized assessment, or you can actually get a free strategy call from us. and we'll be able to basically map out what is your next step on Instagram.
That's great. Super. Thank you for being here. And I'm sure we'll be talking as well in the future about some more topics of social media and branding.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on the show, Christian.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Growth Zone with Christian Bartsch. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review or rating here on iTunes or on podchaser.com. If you found the content helpful, then share it on social media. I would like to invite you to follow our show so that you don't miss the upcoming interviews with leaders in the market. Simply visit the website follow.prmediareach.com. I will be adding the link also to the description of this episode so that you just need to click on that link. For those of you who are listening and signing up to follow the show, I have reserved a free copy of the ultimate guide on content marketing. This is the strategy that got me top corporate clients like McDonald's, Linde, Hewlett-Packard, Deutsche Bank, Volvo, and many others. That strategy has been working for over 10 years. It also got me contracts with police, transport authorities, military, and several universities, and even leading research institutes. For sure, it also worked wonders as it got me many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises as clients. And that even included international clients from all around the world. The link to sign up for our free broadcasting service and the guide is follow.prmediareach.com. That will give you access to the most recent version of my ultimate guide on content marketing. You can follow me as well on Twitter by using the Twitter handle CAP_Bartsch. That's spelled Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel. Yes, that is CAP_Bartsch. Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel.